but we were each other's best friends, I guess you'd say. And she was pretty stoic all the way through. Good woman. I mean, by the Lord's standards, I'm sure she's way up there, except for the word wisdom, which is only smoking. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah. Yep.
Tell us about your dad.
Oh. My dad was, he used to let me drive when I was 12 and 13 and 14 and all that. And he would take me out of school so that I could drive I could go with him on service calls in the country, and I would get to drive. And
How old were you when you drove to Vancouver? With you driving?
with me driving, maybe 15, I don't know, 14, 15. We went over the Yellowhead Trail, but at that point there was no road over it. It was a dirt road that went through streams and everything. You didn't see anybody for miles and miles and miles. It was pretty cool. And we used to go fishing, and I used to help him sometimes. He'd make me rotate the tires on my car before I could drive and things, so that I knew that he knew that I could get myself home. And he was a good guy.
Great sense of humor.
Yes. Next.
I got one.
Okay.
How did you choose your career, and what was your favorite part about it?
Go for it.
Well, in retrospect, that means looking backwards. I think the Lord had a big hand in me choosing my career. When I first went to university, I was going to be a physicist. After a few months at university, I realized I didn't know what a physicist was, and I sure didn't want to be one. So I was thinking then that I'd like to be a doctor. And then I had the feeling that I wasn't empathetic enough. I didn't care enough about other people to be a doctor. In my vision, a doctor was not like you envisage doctors today, but to be a real loving, caring, visit you in your home type of person. So after my mission, I came back and I took business because I thought I was more business oriented. I took my electives so that I could be a doctor if I wanted to, but I stayed with business. I wanted to be a financial analyst type person. But then when I got to fourth year, I realized in order to do that, you had to know accounting, and I still didn't know any accounting. So I majored in accounting and minored in finance. Then I realized I still didn't know anything about accounting. So I decided to article to get my CA, but I didn't want to be a CA because I didn't want to be branded as one of those squinty-eyed bookkeepers. And so I articled for after a couple of years, but then just before it was time to write the exams, and you write them once a year to see if you're going to be a CA.
Ken was born.
Yes, Ken was born in April. I remember it well. You went to Victoria so I could
That's right.
stay all home alone and study because he screamed it all the time.
Really good people.
So the CA magazine came out, and they had a picture of a great big Ford Louisville truck, bright red on the cover. And the president of Ford was a guy by the name of Roy Bennett. How's that for a minute? And he was a CA. And I realized just because you're a CA doesn't mean you have to be boring old squint. And so I quickly signed up for a prep course in Winnipeg for 2 weeks. And half a dozen, 5 of us, 4 or 5, went to Winnipeg for a couple of weeks to take this course. And I studied my little heart out and passed. And so then I had my CA, and so now what was I going to do? Well, we had a client that was an airline company, Great Northern Airways. They were looking for a CFO. The man that appealed to me. I think they stayed in business for a year or two, but fortunately I never joined them. And I looked at several other companies, but nothing really appealed to me. One of my friends became an instructor at SAIT, and I looked at that, chose not to do that. Anyway, I stayed where I was with the feeling of I'll work here as hard as I can, and just in case I stay here. In any event, it'll make a good reference for my next job. But all the way along, I couldn't find another job that I enjoyed as much as what I was doing. And so I ended up staying there and became the first person to specialize in tax, and ended up with some really neat clients and some really neat experiences and lots of travel. And one of the earlier questions was, I thought was going to relate to how did I share my career with my kids. My own partners didn't even understand what I did, unless they were in tax. And I was extremely successful and built the biggest tax practice west of Toronto, and we made lots of money and had lots of fun. But I never came home and shared that with the kids because what I did was very confidential. I mean, it was tough to even tell them that the Calgary Flames were my client. Of course, when I did, I became a hero. But, just like at Christie's funeral, they sent that huge bouquet of flowers, and everybody was pretty impressed. I think over them doing that, because I'd probably been retired for 10 years at that time. So anyway, in answer to your question, I think it's staying close to the Lord and being very prayerful and not doing necessarily what you want to do, but do what the Lord wants you to do. Sorry to be so long-winded, but it's a big chunk
What
of my
3
life.
events most shaped your life?
Repeat that, sorry.
What 3
3
events
events.
most shaped your life?